A very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I am Chamberlain Uso. Glad you could join us again today.
Well, good morning and welcome. This is Ayo Makinde welcoming you to the program on this beautiful Tuesday morning. Yes, you needed that reminder.
Yes, you always give us the reminders. It's a beautiful Tuesday morning. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. I am Bukola Samuel Webimo.
And also to remind you that it's the first official workday of the week for those of you who have 9 to 5s, unlike us. Okay, let's just go straight into the papers this morning. And Dayo Akintobi joins us. He's editor-in-chief Today Community Newspaper. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Always a pleasure to be here.
It's good to have you again after, like, what, like a million years ago?
Been quite an age.
Well, there's so many issues begging, grappling for attention this morning. Well, of course, perhaps the biggest of them would be politics. But then there is also ASU and so many others. But let's just begin with one. Here on the front page of this Nigeria newspaper, 5 PDP governors absent as Atiku launches campaign in Uyo. Bode George says, they're joking. We're waiting. Stories on page 2. What did you make of this?
Well, you ask yourself, how long could the PDP really continue to wait for the recalcitrant governors who have decided to stay away and not participate in this process based, of course, on
You call them recalcitrant.
Yeah.
I couldn't miss that.
Yes, I did.
Why?
Yes, well, because there have been attempts to resolve this impasse and to try to find a meeting of the minds among these two major camps within this party. And it seems there's some sticking issues that just make it seemingly impossible to bridge the gap.
So
now,
are they on the wrong side of the argument?
No, I'm not saying,
PDP argument?
I'm not saying that, not at all. It depends on which side of the fence you sit on. If you're on the Atiku camp side, then you look at it and you say the 5 governors, including Governor Wike, of course, are holding up the process. But if you are also on the Wike side, believing that the issues that they are trumpeting, which of course the problem comes from the party chairman, they believe that the presidential candidate and the party chairman cannot come from the same zone and that the party chairman should resign.
So either side of the divide, you are right.
Whichever side of the divide you are on,
right.
you are right, absolutely.
Okay.
And so this rollout yesterday had to happen because they couldn't continue to wait for a resolution that seems to not be coming. And in spite of the fact that the absence of those 5 governors was a real blow to the party, because those 5 represent a major voting bloc, and their absence is going to have an impact without a doubt. But the party left the door open to reconciliation. The chairman said, even though this train has left the station, it will stop to pick up any people it left behind at any time who are willing to join in the process.
So who are left behind have to run to catch the train.
Even if the train has gone past Rivers and Oyo and Benue.
It doesn't matter. If the train stops at any point, people can catch up and join in.
Now look at this one. Wike bags FG award for infrastructure delivery. Stories on page 7. What do you make of that? There are those who would look at it and say, hey, is this not politics? But hey, does it qualify? I don't know. What do you make of it? Is there something?
Well, the timing is kind of coincidental. The timing does look kind of weird. That, okay, Wike has been the beautiful bride for a while, and now here is the administration in power conferring him with an honor. But if you think about it, he actually seems to have done quite well in terms of infrastructure, because every other day you hear people going to his state to go and inaugurate projects, particularly people from the current government. The Speaker of the House of Representatives have gone. 2 southwestern governors have also gone to go and inaugurate projects. Bode George of the PDP has gone to inaugurate. So without a doubt, he has been building infrastructure in his state. And for the party in power to recognize that, perhaps it's justifiable.
Okay, well, but then you mentioned the timing. I won't forget that one. Look at the story on the bottom of the page. APC tags Dugana Lawal others as rebel impostures. The rebel is in parentheses. The story is on page 4. Don't stay in Abuja. Relocate to 8,000 wards. Buhari urges party faithful. It would seem like as it is in the PDP, so it is in the APC.
Yes, indeed. Even the Labour Party is not without its own headaches at the moment. So all of the frontline political parties have issues. This is typical of election season. This is typical of when you begin to negotiate power sharing arrangements and backdoor deals and issues of political patronage and things like that. That's what is the culture in the run-up to election in any democracy. So it is not unusual for us to see this kind of infighting, jockeying for position. All of that is normal.
Glad we don't find that in the private sector.
Oh, that would be the day, Ayo. From there, let's quickly take a look at Nigerian News Direct. Nigerian News Direct is our next paper this morning, and it leads with some cheery news. Wow, it's like a breath of fresh air. After 8 months, reps ASU raise hope for strike suspension. Let's take a look at the riders. Strike to end in few days. That's ascribed to Speaker Gbajabiamila. We have seen light at the end of the tunnel, and that's ASU speaking. It's a page 12 read. Well, Mr. Akitobi, you know, there's the court case, and we heard the Minister of Labour saying the other day that if ASU refuses to comply with the Court of Appeal ruling, ordering them to return to the classrooms, the risk contempt, being charged with contempt of court. And here we are, the House of Rep Speaker is raising hopes. Where does that leave the court case? And it seems as if they're back at the negotiating table now, which was what, you know, they had told the court that they couldn't resort to because that had failed. But it seems to have worked out with another, you know, mediator in the picture. So where are you in all of this?
Without a doubt, the court case forced ASU's hand. It kind of brought them back to the negotiating table because they don't want to be seen as disobeying a court order. You lose the moral high ground if there's a subsisting court order against you and you flout it. There was some talk about the fact that, well, they could have returned to the classroom and not taught to be in compliance with the court order. But at the same time, that wouldn't have resolved the issues. So the court order served the purpose. There are a couple of other things as well, including registering these 2 other splinter union groups. All these together conspired to force ASU's hand to sit down and look at this thing all over again. But the federal government itself has made some concessions in terms of the money they've put on the table, which has now increased to 470 billion. I think we need to give the Speaker of the House of Representatives a lot of kudos, a lot of praise that him stepping in seems to have made the difference. Like you said, perhaps a different mediator taking charge of the negotiations has been able to calm nerves and begin to get the dialogue going on a more cordial and civil level. Plus, the Speaker has gone to see the President twice. And at the last meeting, he said the President has shifted some in some of his grounds, and ASU has shifted as well. I think the major sticking point, which we shall find out today, is the issue of no work, no pay. As we know, for the last 7-8 months, they've been on strike. There's been no pay. Most of the other issues, they seem to have worked their way around. And we'll hear later in the day today what President Buhari's position is on that no pay, no work, no pay issue. And we should be able to be on the downhill slide to ending this thing.
Besides that, there must be something to give ASU some hope, you know, some optimism, because the worry initially was that, you know, the allowances have been included in the 2023 budget, which would be, you know, an inheritance of the next administration, whom they don't know, and they don't know if they can trust. So do you see that bit, you know, which we do not know yet, giving ASU hope?
Well, once it's in the budget, it becomes law. So even if it is this government that puts it in the budget and signs it into law, it is binding on the incoming government. And so the issue of trust really, I mean, the government over the years, ASU has not trusted anything the government has done, which is what always leads to these kind of impasses. But I would say that as long as it is codified into law, in a budget, getting around it will be difficult. The budget itself already has issues anyway because we have more to spend on. We have more to spend on than we have the revenue to cover. So there's already a deficit for next year anyway. So it's not just education sector that may not get all its money. Every other sector might be impacted as well. The one thing that struck me in what the ASU president said was that future strikes should last for only a day or two, which means the issue of not stopping work is not off the table at all. It means they're leaving the door open for future of these type of actions. They're just encouraging the government, let's not let it linger for 8 months, but we're reserving the right to not agree with what you do and to stop work if you don't. That's worrisome.
Yeah, I guess that depends a whole lot on the temperament of the next government, which we'll find out in just a few months. Well, a few more stories before we exit Nigerian News Direct. Let's go above the nameplates now to check this one. Obajana ownership crisis. Dangote, Kogi government in war of words. That seems not to be ending anytime soon. And lastly, 2023 PDP presidential campaign flag off suffers as Wike, 4 governors absent. Let's see if some of those issues will be covered in the next paper as I throw it to Chamberlain.
Yeah, morning, Ms. Akintobe. Let's take a look at New Telegraph next here, and they lead with 2023 campaign flag off, and the big story on their own front page is Wike's camp absent as mammoth crowd rally for PDP in Uyo. The writer here says parties, governors, stakeholders unite, strategize for polls. Nigerians not interested in our personal quarrels, ascribed to IU. APC rewarded Nigerian voters with poverty, insecurity, that's ascribed to Atiku actually. Well, yeah, much as some other dailies have focused on it, but I'd like to get your perspective on this angle in terms of how do you think the voters, does this in any way affect what the electorate eventually decide? Because, I mean, listen to the politicians, they always talk as though they've got their traditional voters who won't flinch no matter what happens. So suggesting to us that, look, all of this may happen, but their traditional voters, as they call them, will always do or will always stick with them.
I think it's relatively easy this time around for Nigerians, the Nigerian electorate, to figure out which way to go, because we have precedents with which to measure the key people who are presenting themselves for office. So the question I would ask the Nigerian voter to ask is, when were you better off? When were your circumstances better for you? Between 1999 and 2015, how did you fare off? Between 2015 and 2022, how are you doing? So the question is, are you better off today than you were are you better off under an APC government or under a PDP government? And I think to be able to answer the question holistically, we need to begin to question the candidates a lot more. I think it's easy for them to mouth platitudes, oh, I'll fix insecurity, I'll fix corruption, I'll fix education. How do you intend to do that? Nigeria is broke at the moment and probably will still be broke when the new government comes in. So we want to know what exactly your plans are. Don't just tell me you're going to do this. How do you intend to better my life when you come into power? And in that situation, I think the media has a major role to play, because it's the media that can ask the questions. It's the media that can hold the candidate's feet to the fire, not the common man in the street. So to directly answer yes, carry on.
Yeah, I was just wondering, when we talk about Nigeria being broke, many suggest that we don't act as if we're broke. Just yesterday, one of the dailies reported that about 400 billion naira worth of goods were being left to rot at the ports. And then look at what's going on with the industry, the oil sector, how we seem to be allowing, massive, humongous scale of bunkering going on. And so they thought, if people say you're broke, you need to act like it and ensure that you plug all these loopholes, and perhaps you never know how much more money you can save. Well, that said, look at what's at the bottom strip of the paper here today. Obi Afenifere doesn't speak for Yoruba. Akeredolu says true federalism will thrive under Tinubu's presidency. And then you see the rebuttal. We speak for Yoruba race, not you. Afenifere replies, Ondo governor, maintains support for Labour Party presidential candidate. What can anyone make of this kind of narrative?
Well, it's interesting. The Yoruba as a people have always been intellectually independent. I'm not sure that they've all lined up behind any group, whether socio-political, who claims to speak for the race as a homogeneous bloc. I think the people are independent-minded enough to examine their own competencies and their own desires and needs, and then look at what is being offered them and make an intelligent decision on what will work best for them as individuals. However, in politics, without a doubt, there are interest groups. Afenifere is an interest group. Akeredolu is a politician, and everyone's continuing to jockey for influence. So Afenifere, for a long time, actually did represent the views of a wide swath of the Yoruba people, but I think their influence waned with the oncoming of democracy. After the whole fight for democracy that was enthroned in 1999, I don't think Afenifere had that much influence in terms of what the Yoruba as a people said or did. But when you look at the point they're making, that for equity, fairness, and justice, the presidency should go to the Igbo, and for that reason they are supporting Peter Obi's candidacy, you really can't fault that from the standpoint of what is equitable, what is right, and what is just. You can't fight that. That is a morally upright position. Whether that now is the position of the Yoruba race in general, that's left to be seen. I really don't think that any umbrella group has a monopoly on Yoruba or for that matter any other ethnicity within Nigeria. I don't think any group can categorically say that they speak for the entire group. I think Nigerians as a people have independent minds, and we go ahead and we exercise that liberty, you know, to think independently.
Even these days in families, some of them are not usually on the same page when it comes to political matters, so you can then imagine. Yes. But speaking about Labour Party, yesterday a number of people bombarded themselves, even each other, about certain messages. Now you see this 2023, Labour Party disowns campaign timetable. So, in case you're wondering what's going on, perhaps that suffices. That is it with New Telegraph today.
I guess that underscores what you said earlier about each of the parties having their own issues.
Yes.
But then, I think the INEC also has issues with them. Look at the front page of the Leadership newspaper this morning, and you'll find out what that means. 2023 campaigns. INEC threatens sanctions as states clamp down on opposition parties. That's very interesting. Destroy candidates, billboards, posters, impose huge fees on venues. Relocate party secretariats from strategic locations. Governor's action poses threat to peaceful polls. According to CSOs and IPAC, PMB governors must protect rights of parties to hold rallies, says Serap. Seems that's a kind of continuum from previous times.
Yes, the fastest thing you see happening when campaign season comes is you see denial of requests to use stadiums and other public places. So when you're, politics is all about power. When you're in a position of power and influence, you wield it. Otherwise, what's the point?
Is this power being wielded by INEC, or these threats to sanction states, is it any deterrence?
INEC as a regulator should see to it that there's a level playing field, and should see to it that everybody conforms to the rules. So when INEC threatens, it is upholding its constitutional role to make sure that there's a level playing field and nobody abuses its power.
But then should INEC stop at threatening? We've seen some party supporters, you know, intimidated with the police and the use of tear gas, and we saw no INEC, you know, wielding any power as a regulator at that time.
Well, because there are certain human behavior that verges into criminality, which becomes a police issue. INEC is not a policeman. INEC, as a regulator, sets the rules and tries to see that the rules are followed. But when there are violations of the rules that verge into criminality, that's outside the purview of INEC. It now becomes a police matter.
I guess we'll wait for INEC to say how how is the annex sanction going to deter the states and states in political parties running each of the states?
Yes.
You know, to deter them from doing
Yes,
this. But
indeed.
look at this, and it's something that's been very prominent in the news. Flooding. IMF seeks social assistance for farmers to curb food insecurity. Okay, it's really direct. Flooding, food insecurity, and IMF is trying to intervene. What do you make of that?
It's a big problem. I saw a video of Lokoja the other day with hundreds of trucks trapped that can't cross. And those trucks are carrying livestock, they are carrying produce, which are all either going bad, some of the cows are dying. So the food cannot
They've
get...
begun to slaughter the cows, and we hear that they've been there for more than 2 weeks now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the food can't get to the distribution point. We're not even talking about the crops that have been destroyed by the flood, but even the ones that were salvaged, the ability to distribute them across the country is severely truncated at this point, which now begins to lead to scarcity of food. And I hear that we're starting to see impact of that in the markets in Lagos because prices are rising slowly, because now there's starting to be a shortage of certain key food items that are not able to come from other parts of the country down south because the flood has inhibited movement. So yes, it could become a full-blown crisis, which is what the IMF is saying. We better intervene before it becomes a major problem.
But if you can just speak quickly, sorry, Bukola, if you can just speak quickly to the fact that we knew this was going to happen. NIMET, Hydrological Agency, they always spoke about these things. In fact, they made it clear we're going to have more than 200 days of rain in this year. And just over the weekend, the Hydrological Agency's boss was saying, as far as he is concerned, the states didn't get ahead of this. And it's in the states. We have farmlands and all of these things.
We're culturally predisposed to be reactive people. We don't plan ahead, be proactive, take necessary steps. It's when things hit us in the face that we certainly wake up and get thrown out of our slumber. Because as you did say, there's been enough notice right from late last year that this year we're going to see very heavy rains and flooding this year, and people had ample opportunity to take defensive measures, to put them in place, prophylactic measures to put in place to prevent or to minimize the potential disruption by the heavy rains and flooding, but we didn't do them. And it's not just in this situation, even in every aspect of our national life, we react after things have gotten out of hand. We don't take preemptive strikes to prevent mishaps from occurring, even when we have adequate information on hand to guide us.
But then, you know, I recall yesterday's headline. Leadership did an exclusive, coverage on that, and the headline was, "After Lokoja, it's hell." That highway, I wonder whose jurisdiction it falls within, whether it's the federal government or it's the Kogi state government. But it's been 2 weeks. Is government that helpless, to put in place rescue operations to set motorists free from that road?
When you have situations like that, issues of jurisdiction no longer matter. It doesn't matter whose road it is. A lot of times we sweep things under the rug of this jurisdictional struggle between federal, state, and local as to who is responsible. But it's simply people shirking their responsibility. It's not a matter of the buck stops at everybody's desk in the case of an emergency. So in this particular situation, I would expect to see the federal emergency people, the state emergency people, all hands on deck, because we're all Nigerians. The purpose of jurisdiction is for easy administration. That's why we have government in tiers. It's for easy administration. But when things happen like this, that are national emergencies, all hands are on deck. At that point, which arm of government no longer matters.
I mean, while we deal with the government's infrastructure and all of that, I wonder who is going to take care of the personal losses of people whose homes have been destroyed, whose businesses have been destroyed as well.
And we're not an insuring people as such. So in the developed world, insurance would cover all of those losses. But here, by and large, we've not embraced insurance
you just always go for divine insurance.
Well, just to, before we exit the matter, there's been warning that as a result, food prices are going to soar and that people should stock up food in their homes. You know, that's just a fine place to live it. And from there, let's take a look at the Daily Trust newspaper. The Daily Trust newspaper chooses to lead with politics this morning, and it captures the 2023 elections this way. Race to presidency. Atiku unveils agenda, pledges jobs, poverty eradication, others. Join the rescue winning team. Okowa, Tambua, Ayu, others urge voters. That's the first of the riders. The other two go this way. Wike, 4 other governors absent. PDP crisis will soon be over. That's attributed to Diri, that's the governor of Bayelsa State. Are you that optimistic that the PDP crisis will soon be over? Let's just take a last look at it by also adding, you know, to the whole scenario that what do you think makes the PDP so confident to go ahead with the campaign without the other recalcitrant governors, just to borrow your words?
Well, politics is a game of numbers, without a doubt. But politics is also a family affair. And as Chamberlain alluded to, even in families, we have disagreements which we resolve. I don't for a second doubt that the PDP and its aggrieved members will eventually make up, and maybe perhaps 1 or 2 of them can't be pacified or mollified. They will find their square roots, so to speak. But by and large, family disputes are resolved one way or another, and I foresee that from what we saw in Rio yesterday, the PDP is still a formidable entity. Without even the 5 governors, if you saw the energy and the crowd and the cohesion and the unity, and if you saw that in the stadium yesterday, it brought back starkly to our consciousness that the PDP is still a very formidable entity, and one that should not just be dismissed out of hand because some of their members...
So by your calculation, the numbers from the votes in those 5 states can be done away with?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
But I'm not saying that. No, without a doubt, the PDP as the opposition cannot afford to lose 1 single vote. They're already at a disadvantage. You are going up against an incumbent. You need not just all your people, you need to even attract some of the opposition to be able to outdo the opposition. So you don't want to be losing any of your members. That's why I say I'm pretty sure that they'll find a way to accommodate all these people. But by and large, even though the governors are pivotal, the governors in each of the states play a very key role in marshalling the votes within their states. And that's why I don't think at the end of the day they will be allowed to wander away. They'll be brought back into the family fold.
Okay. The coming days are bound to be interesting. Lastly, before we exit the Daily Trust, this one has been going on for days. It's just beneath the nameplate to the right-hand corner. Obajana presidency wades in, Kogi government wades into, I believe, Kogi government Dangote standoff. I wonder if you have been following, you know, that face-off between the company and the Kogi state government and what you make of it.
Well, it took a ghastly turn yesterday when the House of Assembly got razed down by a fire, and the Kogi state government seemed to allude to the fact that the timing of the fire was too coincidental for this dispute not to have played a role. So without saying it in so many words, they alluded to the fact that possibly Dangote may have had something to do with setting off this blaze because they're trying to destroy evidence that may be in the House of Assembly that shows the ownership status of the disputed property. Of course, Dangote has come out refuting that, threatening fire and brimstone and all manner of lawsuits. How dare you malign us like that? We're a socially responsible company. We would never stoop so low as to do something like that. And if you don't retract, we will sue you. So it's not a pleasant situation between the two of them. But what I look at is I think of the amount of investment that has gone into setting up that plant, how many people are employed there, the kind of revenue it's generating, the taxes it's paying to the government. And I'm looking at it and I'm saying, we don't want to jeopardize that for anything. As it is in Nigeria, most of our manufacturing has already gone down the toilet. So the few that are thriving or the few that are still in business, we need to find a way to keep them operational. And so disputes like this, however it pans out, whether it's true that the land is owned by the Kogi state government, whether the plant itself is owned by Dangote, whatever the truth of the matter may be, and that may be up to a court of competent jurisdiction to determine. Whatever the truth of the matter may be, we need to protect the jobs. We need to protect the industry. We need to protect the operation, because we don't want this kind of a dispute to end up upsetting the apple cart at a time when our revenue is not even meeting up.
Absolutely.
So we want to make sure that there's a mediation process. It's been a long time adage that it's my land, you built your house on it, so take your house off my land. So we don't want a situation like that. We have to find a better way to resolve it.
Well, it's a lot of things that we'll continue to just deal with over and over again, because at the end of the day, I mean, speaking to the economy that you talked about, one other question that comes to my mind is, if this goes on and on and on, how many jobs will be lost? I don't even want you to respond to that right now. I have to thank you very much for being a part of our conversation this morning. Dayo Akintobi is editor-in-chief today, Community Newspaper. Thank you so much for your time.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Always a pleasure to have you as well.
Thank you.
So when we return from this break, we'll begin our conversations for the day. Please stay with us. The highest voting bloc in the country, not being the highest number of people vying for office, certainly something of concern. That and a number of other issues to be addressed in this conversation with Chamberlain in Abuja. Chamberlain.
Well, yes, we're starting from a youth perspective, and why not? Because after all, you've seen the register. They hold the chunk. They lead the block, as a matter of fact. But how that plays out at the end of the day will be a huge factor. We've got Hamza Lawal, as you may have seen in that welcoming slide, here with us today. He is the Chief Executive, Connected Development, and founder, Follow the Money. I think I like the second part.
Thank you, Chamberlain.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming on.
Sure.
So, youth, what is going on? I mean, yes, we've seen the register. They're in the front lines now, so to a large extent, they will determine how things play, if they all come out on that day. So, what is going on at the moment in terms of the thinking? What do they plan to do? I know, can they ever even be on the same page? Should anyone expect them all to be on the same page?
Well, this is politics. And honestly, we can't all be on the same page. Even as family members, when you see siblings, they're not always on the same page. But what we hope and what we're working towards is to have some consensus amongst ourselves, where we probably would present a consensus presidential candidate as young professionals, as women and people with disability. And this consultation ongoing, we're talking to ourselves, you know, we're saying, let's not continue to work in silos. For once, let's unite ourselves and our voice. Maybe draw inspiration from the Not Too Young to Run movement that we led and say that, see, we're all collectively affected. And maybe if we come together, and now we're the voting bloc, you know, we're the powers that determines the outcome of this election. So why not, you know, launch on that powers and have a negotiation that is driven by values, by principle, and true representative, where there's intergenerational dialogue, solidarity, and equity. So this is what we're looking at, you know, where young people would inform the outcome, but then have one collective voice, present a candidate that is consensus-driven, and then deliver that candidate to the Nigerian people.
Okay, because I was wondering, wow, consensus candidates, where is that coming from? Because last time they tried it, remember those presidential candidates who tried to come together?
That was the primaries in the political party. I'm not a member of a political...
This is after they have emerged.
After. So this is us now looking at all the candidates presented by the political party. You know, we'll look at them, we'll set our terms, and we'll have conversation with them. You know, we would sit with their people, we'll sit with this candidate, we'll ask them salient questions, they'll give us their responses, we'll continue to dialogue, and before the election, we'll come public. You know, we'll come to you, Chamberlain, and tell the Nigerian people, this is our candidate. And we'll tell the Nigerian people clearly why, and then we'll convince them to vote for that candidate.
Isn't that going to be risky? Because a couple of things play out here. In politics, look, you never say never. You know, we've seen over the years, they will promise you, you know, heaven and earth and deliver very little. So if youths commit themselves to that and that fails, isn't that going to, you know, chip away at the confidence that they may have, say, after all, we supported this candidate, whoever that is. If the candidate doesn't perform, how would that play out?
Chamberlain, you know, change does not come without risk. Life itself, it's about taking risk. And I believe that there's a lesson that we would learn. We cannot sit down, fold our arms and say, okay, there's a risk, you know, to this innovation. There's a risk to this thinking. And since there's a risk, let's just leave Nigeria to be on autopilot and let the outcome decide itself. No. We want to take the future of Nigeria into our hands. We want to decide the trajectory. The current script is not working for you and I. It's not working for the Nigerian people. We need a new script. And for us to get a new script, we must collectively flip the script and ensure that we decide what becomes of the new script. A script where we would design it together and implement it together. Yes, I know that most politicians are not trustworthy. They are not men and women of their words. But there will be some level of agreement. There will be some level of understanding. Maybe we would not get everything we so desire in 2023 when we present a candidate and deliver this candidate. But I believe there's time. You know, see, there's 2027, there's 2031. My own vision and the hope and aspiration of Nigerian people is that someday we would have a youth presidential candidate, a young person who would lead Nigeria, someone with trajectory, with track record, with values, with capacity, with competence, someone who has taken nothing and turned it into something. And I believe we have those people, but you know, the current tides is not working to ensure that we deliver and provide that kind of person.
So what happens to this being organic? Because there are those who say, wait a minute, I thought that the youths already made their voices heard on social media, saying we're going to support a particular candidate. In fact, some of them say we're going Labour. Haven't seen what PDP and APC will do. So doing this, wouldn't that be tantamount to trying to coerce or take it away from the organic way and then pitch a candidate in the event that it doesn't end up with the way they're going already?
Chamberlain, let's look at data. You know, let's leave social media alone. Social media is not a political reality, and let's not get carried away. Yes, it's really exciting, there's engagement. Young people have now come out and say they will take their place, and they're now rallying around a presidential candidate, which is exciting and it's fantastic. And this is what politics and democracy is all about. It should be competitive. But let's look at data, and let's look at granular data. How many percentage of people, the Nigerian people, are on social media, have access to social media and smartphone or technology device? How many of them? I'm a grassroots man. You know, I run campaigns in all the 36 states. And I'm not talking about the capital. I've been to the hinterlands, you know. When you look at the block, the main block, they're not on social media. They're not engaging on Twitter and Facebook. You know, they're offline. You know, these are the people where we fold our sleeves and our shokoto and enter canoe or enter motorbike and go and meet with them and interact with them and dialogue with them and have an agreement with them. And most of the votes comes from the grassroots. So, Chamberlain, I understand, you know, where you're coming from, but let's not get carried away. And yes, 24 hours in politics is a lot of time. But for me, you know, I'm looking at the realities of politics. You know, I'm not a, you know, I can't be excited about how politics have evolved, you know, from 2015 to 2019. I'm getting older, so I can't be carried away by, you know, social media shenanigans. But I respect their views and I understand where they're coming from and that collective anger. And yes, we need that. And I like the fact that now politics is a bit competitive and people are actually changing the tides and setting the pace for engagement. And I can see that this social media conversation is also informing how candidates are presenting their ideas, how they're presenting their manifestos, and what they want to deliver on. But I'm not carried away by social media. I'm actually engaging people with permanent voters card. And I'm leading a campaign on PVC collection drive. I'm talking to women, I'm talking to young people, I'm talking to people with disability that have PVC. And for me, it's collect your PVC. Commit down election day, you come out and vote. And because I'm also doing this, Chamberlain, so my good friend Moses Yasi Asiloko and I will sit down and say, okay, we're running a PVC drive. What next? So they collect their PVC. And a lot of people are asking me, so Hamza, we have our PVC. Who do we vote for? And so there's no room for mistake. Yes, we will take risk. We will learn from it. But there's no room for mistake because this is about life and death, Chamberlain.
So how is this going to play out? Because naturally, over the years, in terms of how people vote, there are several factors that determine how people vote.
Yes.
Now, you get in there on the day, you have people who will be induced and they will vote on that day. You get there, you have people who say, no, I'm voting this way because, look, this is personally close to me, either by family, by ethnicity, whatever. This is close to me, this is what I want. You have traditional party members who will say, well, look, no matter what happens, I'm going to stick with my party. And then you have the idealistic people who say, no, this is about principles. We need to change this country. We've done this, we need to try this way. So how do you plan to galvanize all this?
Chamberlain, I don't have all the answers. But all I can tell you is when you go on the streets and you ask an average Nigerian, what are the things that are dear to you? First, they will tell you healthcare, that they pay from out of pocket. Second, they will tell you that, oh, their children cannot go to school, they're dropouts. Or, oh, they cannot afford to pay for their children's school fees. Or they can't even afford to take their children to the school that they want to. Thirdly, they talk about shelter. Fourthly, they talk about, oh, we cannot even feed our family. Even with the food we have, they're not nutritious meal. So be it you voting because of principle, or you're voting because you're a party loyalist, or you're voting because, you have an affiliation with a candidate. Each and every one of us is, affected by the same thing. And lastly, Chamberlain, is insecurity. Everybody say, oh, I don't feel safe. I cannot go to bed closing my eyes. I can't travel 30 kilometers within Nigeria without the fear of being kidnapped or attacked. So, and this is, I believe, would be the uniting force for us. And our message is clear. And when we engage these candidates and their camps, these are what we're bringing in the front and say, how would you deal with this decisively? So it's not about telling us all this fancy English. If you say you're going to deal with insecurity, what is the timeline? How would you do it? If you say you're going to create jobs, and it's not also about creating jobs, it's about creating green jobs and sustainable livelihood. If you're going to do that, how would you do that? If you say you transform city, how would you ensure they're not underwaters, like some of, our town and state currently? And you're going to give us clear roadmap with timelines. And then for us, we're also conscious. How would you mobilize these resources, knowing that we're now buried in debt servicing? How would you mobilize these resources? Where would you get the funding from? It's going to be PPE. It's going to be a foreign direct investment. Then how would you ensure that we pay this debt that we're owing? So are you going to increase taxes? So who are you taxing? Are you taxing the old woman in the market, and it's going to inform double taxation, or you're going to provide, or it's going to be luxury tax? So how are you going to do this, and how are you going to ensure there are no leakages? Because currently we still experience leakages, and just recently, Channels TV, working with partners, uncovered one of the biggest heights in the oil and gas sector. So how are you going to deal with this? Are you going to be a reactive government or a proactive government? So these are going to be clearly stated. But again, everything is not cast in stone. I don't have all the answers. And because I'm not a politician, I'm upright and very straightforward, Chamberlain.
So how far has this gone in terms of the preparations and putting things in place to make sure this happens?
So Chamberlain, this conversation actually started before the primaries. So we started the Green Nigerian movement. Before then, there was the We Together movement. There's so many other groups working in different silos, and each and every group have their own agenda. And for us, we're inspired by environment and climate change, knowing that the environment is everything. And that's why we say, you know what, we're the Green Nigerian Movement. And we launched in the Southwest at that time, and also did another launch in the Northwest. And so after the primaries, and for us first, we wanted to inform what even becomes of the primaries. So it's not about transactional. And we were saddened that, you know, this primaries were informed by transaction. You know, a lot of people were disenfranchised. You know, some of this list got changed at the last minute. It was really sad. And we said, see, as much as we're sad, we cannot wallow away in sadness. We must bounce back. And I have millions of followers, online and offline. And I must inform them and educate them and continue to carry them along. So for us, we've started 2 years before now, you know, engaging and consulting. But now we're at that phase. We're talking to different groups on different blocks to say, let's even, you know, come together. Within ourselves, we must form, you know, that alliance. After we form the alliance, then we'll start talking to, you know, the various camps to inform what becomes the presidential consensus candidate.
All right. I wonder what Buki and Ayo are thinking at the moment, guys.
Let's start with something that we've done before, Chamberlain, because I remember, you know, there's something that you often say. Yeah, I mean, you know what someone will do by what the person has done before. So, Mr. Lawal, my question to you is along that line. The last time we had this kind of collaboration, so to speak, was in after the annulment of the 1993 elections. Most of the people that forced the military to a standstill, so to speak, were young people. Many of them are not in politics now, even though some of them are. The question that I'd like to ask you is, what would be the motivation for the staying power for youths? This Fourth Republic took 6 years of young people, civil society organizations, socio-political organizations staying on the issue. But you and I know that those days have since gone. There was no social media then, there is social media now. So the conversation around how to keep youths patient and focused on this ball, how do we achieve that? Because unless we do that, I don't know how long that'll last.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the annulment, the 1993 annulment, or election annulment. And there is lesson to learn when you look at, you know, the pre-military and post-military era. And I'm glad you also mentioned that a lot of the activists that led this campaign, most of them did not join politics because they felt, oh, you know, let's leave politics for the politicians. And what happened is that some of the people who had khaki, you know, removed their khaki and wore babariga. And as young people, we've learned from history because we cannot take our country to prosperity without learning from where we're coming from. And I'll tell you upright, you know, we want people in government that understand that, see, it's about intergenerational dialogue and equity. We want someone who would say, you know, the young people have a role to play. They have numbers, they have energy, they have ideas, they have innovative ideas. And as older people, you might say, oh, you have experience. But then experience driven by values, driven by competence to deliver on the mandate of people. So we want that fusion amongst young people and old people, because I'm sure a lot of people say, so what is the need for the youths? Why should we have a consensus candidate? See, power is created. Because right now, why all this campaign is happening is because President Muhammadu Buhari is transitioning. Our democracy is evolving. Our politics is also transitioning. In 2023, we would have a new president. So what it means is no one actually have power right now. And with all of this process, what informs it is power would be created at the polls with the ballot. And when it's created, what we want to see is let this power be shared. Let it be shared so there's inclusion, so that there is no gap within the society itself. And that's why we're running this campaign, and we're hoping that we will get a consensus candidate, a presidential consensus candidate, that when power is given to him or her, this person would share this power across the country, where there is inclusion, where there is a sense of belonging, and where there is unity of purpose. And with that, we can bat a new vision for our country, one that we can all identify with and work towards achieving it.
Mr. Hamzat, I want to start with the views of some of the youths who have been on this program in the recent past. And they have expressed the view to the effect that the youths cannot make significant change unless they begin to get on board the political space by registering specifically with the political parties. And I also couldn't miss, what Yaga Africa said about some of the factors that excluded the youths from the process in this 2023 electioneering season, the advent of it. And one of the things that was mentioned was the high cost of forms. Youth candidacy is good, but you have also rightly observed that 2027 is coming, 2031 is coming. What is your movement doing to prepare for that time such that you can surmount these challenges, high cost of forms, the monetization of the presidential primaries, so that we can have not just the voting bloc, but also the opportunity to effect change with participation in governance, actual participation in governance?
I totally agree with you. See, we cannot shy away from politics, and as a political scientist by training, everything is political. But one thing we failed is to actually move from politics to governance and to good governance so citizens can enjoy the dividends of democracy. See, we cannot say we want change in Nigeria and then we would say, oh, we remain neutral, we'll be on the sideline or we'll be on the fence. No, now is not the time to be on the fence, because the kind of change we want to see, we must actively participate in this politics, whatever that means to each and every one of you. But we must participate actively in this politics. And yes, you see, my message as a civic actor changed when I turned 35. And I said that each and every one of us must join politics. Let's become card-carrying members of a political party. Imagine if we have 70 million young people now identify with the political party. Don't you know that we can actually start that change even within the process and the system itself that inform what becomes the outcome of this party or the candidate of this party? And I say to young people, do you attend ward meetings? Do you attend local government meeting? Do you attend state meeting? And that what would inform what becomes the national party meetings? And you don't even have to attend as a card-carrying member of a party. You can attend as an observer. And I know, yes, we're mobilely upward, we're always in city center trying to, get daily subsistence rather. I think it's important that we go back to the grassroots, and each and every one of us is from a community. And I'm also conscious, you see, in 2019, I said something on Channels Television that, I got a lot of backlash. And I said, we started very late. Because at that time, there was a conference called The Youth Decide. And at that gathering, I said we started late. Politicians, after 2015 election, they started preparing for 2019. And after 2019, they were preparing for 2023. But as young people, we sadly always start late. And I think one lesson, and hopefully we're able to deliver on the presidential consensus candidate, is we need to start immediately after the 2023 election so that we can inform 2027 and 2031.
Let's end with this. So, because the way some people understand this consensus candidature matter is people who work, politicians or parties, some parties, if not most, work from the answer. So they already know what they're headed, and then they just do every other thing to key into that. This is not going to be the case.
No, this will not be the case. And interestingly, even people within the party and the party structure, politicians are very tricky. They're with you, but they're not with you. And that's why I say 24 hours is a long time in politics. And for us, this also is an inspiration. That, see, everyone in the party does not also agree with the decision of the party. And for us, that's a gap that we must cash in on. Let's talk to each and every one of them and have them work for the youth presidential consensus candidate.
We'll be interested to see how this plays out, because we'll keep tabs on that one. Thank you very much indeed for coming on. Hamzat Lawal is the Chief Executive, Connected Development, and founder, Follow the Money. We will be back in just a moment. They're still talking politics, though, so stay with us.
Thank you for staying with us. Well, as you've seen there, Dr. Adetokunbo Pierce joins us this morning. He is a member of the presidential campaign team of the PDP. Thanks for joining us again.
Thank you.
Well, there are so many issues to raise from that one, but if I can just begin with you from the first conversation we had about youth participation in politics. There are concerns on all divides that one can imagine about, how the political parties, the main political parties, and even the ones that are coming up, the political class generally have welcomed the young people into their fold, how the kind of roles they should be played, and all of that. So one is wondering, first of all, what are your thoughts on youth participation in politics, perhaps from your party's perspective?
You know, I'm a teacher, a profession, a university lecturer for many years. 20 in the United States and 15 here in Nigeria, University of Lagos. Young people are the foundation, the backbone, the present, not only the future, the present of any country. And that has to do with building the educational force so that you have human capacity to build the country in every way. The problem with us in Nigeria is that we discuss issues out of context. There shouldn't be any separation between youth and anybody else in politics. People must engage the system. After all, everybody who is now in their 60s, 70s, still hanging on to power, they began somewhere as a younger person. It is very important for young people to realize that nobody is going to give them anything on a platter. You have to commit yourself and work for it. That is what you have to do. Just as you go into university, you want to graduate, you do everything you have to do. If you come into any political party, the ward level, they are all young people. The local government level, they are all young people. People running for Senate, people running for House of Reps, people running for Assembly. They are all people in their 20s and 30s and 40s. So this business of saying young people must be, everybody engage, do what you can to make the system better, both for yourself and for the country.
But then, thankfully you said you're a university teacher, so you would know how young people feel when they have to stay home for so long. Well, the ASU has been on strike now for a while now. We understand that they promised to call off the strike in a little while from now. But between 1999 and about, say, 2013, under the PDP government at the time, ASU went on strike almost 10 times. This I'm very sure you are very well aware of. So one would then wonder if there is a plan by the political class generally, including your party, the PDP, to literally silence the young people by allowing all of these, strikes and disadvantages to come to young people.
This business with university strike and the deprivation of the educational system is not a young person's problem. It is a national disaster. It is everybody's problem. Every young person who's not in school is a problem for the whole family and for the development of the nation. So it's a major concern. We shouldn't look at it as if it's a separate issue for young people. All of us are concerned. I was one of the people who called for the end of the strike. I think it was in 2011 or 2012. I got tired. Every day I go to the staff club, the teachers are sitting down having fun. The children are not going, the students are not going to class. You mortgage your future, and you are mortgaging your own future. So I believe that what is important is to have a president. Everything, the buck stops with the head of this country. A president who is fully committed to education, who understands the value of education. I got to tell you, that is why one of the 5 points agenda of Atiku is education, and he has demonstrated in his own private life.
Dr. Pierce, I guess
when you get into office, listen, please. When you get into office and you're a president, you must engage the system. This thing can be solved if there's a will. The problem is there's no will. I've actually been talking to university staff union. I told them, go and engage people running for president now. Tell them what you think can solve this problem. And I think for now, what is going on in the system right now is that the TED fund that was dedicated to funding university system has been basically encroached upon by this administration because they have no creativity of making money. The money that the corporations pay into this educational fund is being encroached upon. That will solve the problem. If you have a president who is committed, and take them on now, not only the staff union and the students, but the media should also take all of them on now. What do you have for education? How do you solve this problem? I'm telling you from my own perspective, knowing the candidate of the PDP, that he has a plan to solve this problem. He has the will. He has shown it in his own private life, educational promotion at every level. That is the key.
If I may come in there, I guess
Sure.
the spirit behind the question, if I may borrow Ayo's words, is that under your government in the past, the problem was not solved. And one of those positioning to lead the country now was a member of the former administration. So why should he then be trusted when he says that strikes will be a thing of the past?
You have a good point.
If he's
you
elected.
You have a good point. Number one, Atiku was not the president. So get that straight. There are ways you can contribute if you're vice president and so on. He did his bit. What I'm saying now is compare them now. The people running for office, what have they done in education? What is their commitment to education? What is the potential? When you talk about PDP didn't solve problems, very true. A country's development is a work in progress, just like life itself. All you have to do is compare and contrast. All the people running now, the three major candidates, nobody is perfect. Nobody can get 100%, maybe not even 80%. Compare them and choose the best. That's all we do. I said it in 2015, right here, that Atiku, Jonathan may not be good, but compared to Buhari, he will be like Mother Teresa. It will be fantastic. Compared to Buhari, we have seen it now. That is the issue, and that's what we must do now. Don't keep talking about what they did in the past. What do they have to offer? That's what you have to look at. Don't talk about the party, individuals. After all, who is the president? That's what you must look at.
But
I don't want to talk about
according
the president
to the Electoral
at that time.
Act,
Talk
Dr.
about
Pierce,
the man now.
Just a second.
Yes.
The individuals don't vie for office, so to speak. Per our laws, it's the party that vies for office on behalf, of itself, with a frontliner that's going to say, okay, I'm going to do everything that my party says to ensure that good governance comes to the people. So where does the argument of the individuals
Let me correct you
the
there.
party
That's
go?
the problem that we don't understand in this country. Think about America, England. Think about the party and the individuals. It's the individual. The party will help you to get into office. What will the individual do? I'll give you an example. In this present administration, the party said in their manifesto they're going to have restructuring. Buhari got there and said, I don't want to do anything about restructuring. I don't want to hear about the 2014 report. It's not my business. I'm not interested in it. Throw the report in the garbage. That's what he said. Even though the party was saying something else, everything boils down to the will and the perspective and the interest of the man at the top of the ticket. The buck should stop there.
Which brings up the issue, which brings forth again the issue of the supremacy of the party. During the PDP government of the 16 years, at least at the beginning of it, we had situations where the head of government at the time, the president at the time, said, look, party can say what they want to say. I'm the president. Whatever I'm going to do is what I'm going to do. So the party supremacy was compromised under a PDP government. It was. So how is that going to be any different now? Okay. How is the political manifesto going to take precedence over what the president wants?
This is why I said you have to watch the individual. Let me tell you what happened with Obasanjo as president. I read his book, My Watch. He went abroad to visit a foreign head of state. He told the head of state he was going to retire when he got back home. The head of state advised him, kings don't retire. So Obasanjo looked at himself as a king. So when he got back, he took over the party. You know how many times they got rid of chairman in that period? So many times. The party is the whole thing depends on the approach of the president. Notice what is going on now. Atiku is not involved in trying to remove a president. He's not trying to impose himself on the party because he's a liberal Democrat. That's why I said you got to watch the individual, not just the party. Party can say something, but if the man becomes the president and he doesn't want to perform on those issues, that's what we're going to get. I just gave you a good example. Buhari says he's not interested in restructuring. The party is promoting restructuring. That's the way it goes. So watch the individual. But look at their record.
Sir, there
look
were
at
restructuring documents even before the National Confab sponsored by your government in 2015. Yes, it didn't. Yet it didn't implement that one. It insisted on organizing another confab. So when your candidate says unity, Nigeria's unity is going to be on the front burner, we will restructure, can it be trusted?
That's what I'm saying. Look at the individual and their record and their performance and their commitment. By the way, the issue of unity is not negotiable. You know why? The division in this country now has never been as bad as this. The North does not trust the South does not trust the North. That's why we're having elections. People saying, it's my turn. It's the turn of the Yoruba people. It's the turn of the Igbo people. It's only Atiku who is saying, it's the turn of restructuring. It's the turn of bringing rescue to this country, improving our economy, improving the state of security, and unifying the country. You know why we are so disunited and divided? Because for 8 years now, almost 8 years now, Buhari has had these lopsided appointments, whereby everything in security, all the heads in the financial sector, in the police, everywhere is Northern Muslim. Atiku is not a tribalist. What Buhari has done is a performance of an ethnocentric leader who regards himself as the leader of the North and not the South. That's why we have the problem in this country. You have a leader who is not a tribalist, therefore you are going to have more fair-minded, balanced appointments, and therefore people will trust the system more.
Well, perhaps there are those who would also question the fact that, look, it's one thing to have people appointed into office, another thing altogether for you to look at the track record. There are those who would point to the things that, you know, the government that you are criticizing now have done with the second Niger Bridge, the longest, you know, road in Nigeria, in Africa, the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and all of those. They'll point to some things that they have done in the South. But, you know, that's not even the issue for me. Again, we talk about, I want to go back to the issue of party supremacy. In terms of, because I've looked at, you know, our politics over the years, over the republics that we've had. The First Republic, the Second Republic, the Third Republic, they had party supremacy. In other words, the party said it, that's what the candidates did when they got into office. But in this Fourth Republic, that hasn't been the case. Do you think it is something that we should champion? Do you think it's something that should be up front and central?
Look, the party is as good as the people who run the party. What we need in this next administration is a review of the 1999 Constitution so that our country can begin to work again, so that we can begin to respect ourselves and trust ourselves again. You must diversify the economy. We cannot depend on oil. You have to allow the states to use the mineral resources they have to develop their states. Ondo State cannot sit on the third largest deposit of bitumen in the world and not be able to use it to develop the Southwest region. We have just discovered lithium in Kwara State. North Central will be a boom zone. This is the problem. Enugu is sitting on the 9th largest deposit of natural gas in the world. The Constitution has put everything in the other list that we cannot use it concurrently to develop. This must change. This is what we're talking about, restructuring. We must restructure this country, and we want a president. This is why, for me, you may say I'm PDP, yes, I am. But my reason for supporting Atiku is because of his commitment to this issue of changing the way things are. We must have state police. Therefore, what we're talking about is states who have control over their own security apparatus, so that they can then protect themselves.
Dr. Pierce.
This is the way it has to be.
I hear you.
Yes.
But then, first of all, two things right now.
Yes.
Your party governed, had two confabs, one in 2005 and one in 2014. And all of those two confabs were geared towards some form of restructuring one way or the other to address the issues that you have raised. Yet here we are talking about these issues of restructuring again. So what's the assurance Nigerians have that under the next PDP government, if the PDP government comes in, this thing will be done?
Again, I don't want to castigate any past president. But I have to tell you, if you are the president and you are an autocrat and you are a military man who believes in central command, you will approach things differently. If you are a civilian and you are a mild-minded teacher who cannot confront anybody, you know who I'm talking about. Things may not go the way you want things to go. What I'm saying now is we have also learned, all of us, including Atiku Abubakar, what we need to do. We are now at a stage in this country where this country is about to collapse. You understand that? This country is about to disintegrate.
Just a second.
If we do not, elect a president
Dr. Pierce,
who will address
you will
this
continue
issue,
that particular line
this
of thought.
country will just drift apart.
You continue that same
Yes.
train of thought. You've talked about just one of the presidents that governed under a PDP government. There were two others, even though one of them had a short stay. There was, Alhaji Umar Yar'Adua, and then there was also Dr. Goodluck Jonathan at the time. So it wasn't just, Chief Obasanjo that was president.
Well, it wasn't just Chief Obasanjo I spoke about.
And then some other things that your government promised at the time, they didn't do it.
Under Obasanjo, consider the achievements under Obasanjo. They were not perfect, they didn't do everything. But look at what they did in the economy. Look at what they did for security. They challenged. Obasanjo improved the quality of life in the university system. Even though they had strikes, true. But they seized the salary scale, for instance. The number of protests reduced during that period. And I'm telling you, we are now at a point where we have to look at where we are. Yar'Adua did wonders for this country. It's a tragedy the man died so young. So he had begun to deal with the security system in the Niger Delta area effectively. He had brought in trust into the system, whereby they were trying to frustrate, one government was trying to frustrate Lagos State. What did he do? Yar'Adua came there and said, look, you must let them perform. Yar'Adua was subtly approving this issue of decentralization so that the states would have their own autonomy to a great extent. It's the only way we can develop as a nation. We are using a federal system just like the United States. Imagine a state like Alabama waiting for funds from Washington, waiting for security to police their area, rural areas from Washington. It will not happen. We have to restructure, and the restructuring president is Abubakar Atiku, and that's where we need to go. Nigerians just need to know this and decide for themselves
Spot on.
who they want.
And you touch on a subject that is critical to restructuring, which is constitution review.
Sure.
And we've seen the twists and turns, under this administration where constitution review is concerned. Let's be frank. There is a voting bloc that has to be surmounted at the National Assembly where constitution review is concerned, and that is the North.
Sure.
Under a PDP government, for instance, where is the assurance? That is what Nigerians need.
It is not
that voting bloc will be surmounted in those critical aspects of constitution review.
This is one reason why, personally, I think Atiku is the best for now. Let me tell you something.
But we've seen the unity in your party or the disunity in your party.
Our party is not the government.
Is that a template for what your government will look like?
Our party is not the National Assembly. Our party is not National Assembly. If Atiku becomes president, he is now going to deal with National Assembly to convince the National Assembly. Who do you think the National Assembly is most likely to listen to of all these people running? He has the support already. A lot of people are running in SDP. They're running in different political parties for Senate, for national, for House of Reps. And guess who their presidential...
Where is the support that he has?
Do you know who their presidential candidate is? Atiku Abubakar. That's what you're going to have. He's going to have a majority. It is the will that was not there under Buhari. The will was not there. The technique and the will was not there, and the time was not right under Obasanjo. The time was not right. Now is the time. We are now at a verge of collapse in Nigeria. Before you know it, if we don't get it right this time, Yoruba Nation will go a separate way, IPOB will go a separate way. Look, the whole nation is in total disintegration. Therefore, this is not a time to play games. This is not a time to say, this is my party, that is my party. This is time to look at the issues. What are you going to do? Do you have the will? Can you convince the National Assembly to support anything you come up with? Who else can do it of the three who are running now? But Atiku.
You've referenced...
If anybody can do it, it is him.
You also referenced a number of things that your candidate did while he was, vice president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for 8 years. The fact that he championed the public the privatization process and all of that. But there are several others, including the current president of the Senate, who is saying the power sector needs to be renegotiated because it wasn't properly done, and the reason for which we have the challenges that we have on our hands right now. And that was something that was championed by your candidate when he was, vice president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So why should people listen to him?
Atiku has come out to say what happened when he was vice president. He had proposals that he put forward to revamp and improve the power sector. It was not accepted. He was vice president. You remember the rift between him and Obasanjo to a great extent. Now he has an agenda to improve the power sector.
Question is how?
The power sector is going to be removed from control of government. It has to have a serious input of the private sector.
But the private sector is already included.
No.
Perhaps not just rightly
It is not being implemented properly. This is the issue.
But that was the foundation that he laid. That was the foundation that his privatization process laid.
The privatization process has to be fully well managed. You start it, then you manage it properly. He has now come to manage it properly, to improve on the way that it has been executed, and then we are going to have great improvement. There is no way. And by the way, if you talk about the power sector and the failure of the power sector, failure is dependent on comparison. Jonathan left about 5,000 megawatts. What do they have now? 2. So, look, again, it's never been perfect. But the PDP government has been better than anything we've seen today. Anybody who votes for this present government, I'm sorry.
I think you also said it the other time, perhaps a good place to leave it. I'm sorry, but we have to leave. You also said it, rightly the other time that the party is different from the government. So perhaps, the other party...
That's debatable, but we'll just leave it there.
Yeah. Both the party, the past of this APC, and the people running now. Let me not talk about them. Okay. Let them come and defend themselves.
Well, I guess we'll leave that one to them. Dr. Adetokunbo Pierce is a member of the presidential campaign team of People's Democratic Party.
They'll be here to defend themselves.
Well, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're back after now to take on another issue. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. Mr. Victor Omofaye joins us next. He is the Commissioner for Environment in Kogi State. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Well, what a tough scenario playing out in Kogi State at the moment. First, could you just tell us, what is the current situation now?
Yes, thank you, Chamberlain. Like you said, my name is Honorable Victor Mofai, the Commissioner of Environment. Well, it's quite unfortunate that this flooding is coming again at this time. Let me quickly take you down the memory lane then, Chamberlain. In 1936, that was when we first experienced this flooding. And at that time, it was measuring 13.6. Now, we had another one in 2012, which we all know that the level of devastation is still what we are battling on with in the state. And it was measuring 12.8 at that time. But what we had currently now is 13.2. And so you can see that it's even more than that of 2012, that we are still battling with the level of devastation. And now we are faced with this. And so, honestly, the destruction is massive, and it cut across the 10 local governments. Namely, we have Kogi, Koton, Karofe, we have Lokoja, we have Fajakuta, we have Bassa local government, we have Ibaji local government, we have Omala local government, we have Ofu local government, Ida local government, and equally we have Adavi and Igalamela Odolu. These are the 10 local governments. And as we speak, all these local governments have been submerged. In fact, they are underwater. That is just the best way to describe it.
Wow. So, how are the people coping? I mean, how have they been attended to? Any special place that they're on? What's going on with the people that have been displaced?
Yes. The state government, under the leadership of Able Governor Alhaji Yahya Dozabelu, has quickly set up a committee, and under the supervision of the deputy governor, who has, in the same way, quickly put up a situation room, and as we speak, all data have been collected there. And anything that has to do, flooding in Kogi states, we have 3 stages of activities. We have before, during, and after. And so the before aspect of it is when we carry out a lot of awareness, sensitization, and what have you. And so now we are faced with this flooding. And so presently, the people who have been sensitized earlier have been moved to a higher ground. The people at the flood-prone area have been moved to a higher ground. And that is why you have not experienced the outcry of high level of death rate. But due to the earlier warnings and earlier sensitization and mobilization that we're giving them.
Okay, so speaking about that, I do remember, you've gone down memory lane to remind us, but in 2018, there was that caution as well. I think the then Commissioner for Environment, I think NEMA as well, they got there and warned that, look, the next flooding in the state may be worse than what happened in 2012, which you alluded to.
Yes, Chamberlain, you know that flooding is almost becoming an annual ritual in Kogi State. And so we had in 2012, 2018, 19, like that. And that is why this government is so proactive in ensuring that the people living along the coastal area are being given earlier warnings, earlier sensitization and awareness, to quickly move to a higher ground the moment they experience this. And that is, with the cooperation of NEMA and SEMA, we have been working in conjunction with even non-governmental organizations to see that this menace is being tackled.
Yeah, but yes, NEMA, SEMA, but even NIMED, hydrological services, they all seem to keep saying one thing: relocate those people to a higher ground. So because this flooding, who knows, there just might be another, nobody knows when, because there's a history, which you say is almost on an annual basis. So how is the government approaching that? I know, yes, you've talked about you needing a lot of help. How is the government going about that? Are they going to move, look, how many people will move to a higher ground? What can be the solution to that?
Yes, the solution, like I would say, is that the state government alone cannot do this. And so that is why we are calling on the federal government and even international donors, well-spirited persons in the society to come to our aid. It's not something Kogi alone can do. You know, relocating thousands of people. Don't forget the fact that in 2012, about 70,000 houses were being destroyed. You have farmlands, you have properties worth of billions, you know. And that is why I said, in fact, as I speak with you, the level of this, devastation that time has, you know, is still on. We are still facing it. And so this one too is, the destruction is massive. And so that is why we are still appealing, because Kogi State government alone cannot do this. And the governor has, while he's storing the affected persons, the camps that we have, because presently we have our camps, IDP camps in our various local government. And so while His Excellency was going around to at least sympathize with the victims, he indeed told them that, yes, that they will, there's that effort to move these people to a safer place. And that is why we are currently doing. Like I told you, we have a committee in place now. We are working around it to ensure that this is done as quickly as possible.
So what is the, because there are several reports as to even places that the displaced people are supposed to stay not as comfortable minimally as they may have wanted. Is that being addressed, and what are you going to be doing moving forward?
Yes. You know, this is emergency, and we just have to treat it like that. So many public places have been turned to IDP camps, and so we have tried in our own way to provide at least a little succor in form of giving them relief materials and ensuring that they, at least minimally, they have a good living, providing water, you know, lights, and even mobile toilets, just to ease their comfort, at least.
You know, there has to be like a bigger solution and a larger conversation at the higher level to ensure that these kind of things are addressed, because if this kind of flooding happens again and keeps happening, the economy, the state economy will be hit, people's livelihoods already hit, so they're taking a big hit. So what can you tell us about the conversation going on? Is the president, the government, are they speaking, neighboring countries? What's being done to ensure that this is addressed such that you don't have this kind of devastation any further?
Yes, unfortunately, these things will continue to happen for the fact that even our climate change, you know, climate change is affecting us badly. And so this will continue to happen. But then as a government, I think the first and foremost is to ensure that we have a proper dredging of this water. Don't forget the fact that Kogi State have the confluence of these rivers, both Benue and Niger. And so they converge in Lokoja, and that is why we only, experience this level. And so I think the first thing is to ensure that we have these rivers dredged. By the time we have it, then it will accommodate more water. You know, that alone will mitigate this problem we're talking about. And aside that, there are places where if we can provide, because the state government has started the phase 1 of embankment, and that has really helped in this situation. So if such embankment can be extended, you know, along the coastal line to hit where they call Natako, I think it will go a long way in, you know, curbing this. And at the same time, if bridges can be like what you have in Kotonkarufi now, you can see that some people spend days, you know, in that long jump. And so if that water can be dredged, at least it will enable more water to flow. Then you have, even in Lokoja metropolis, there are places that we have to construct bridges so that it will not hinder vehicular movement. Water can pass under while the vehicles pass over. These are measures that I think that can put in place to curb this. But then, with the reality of climate change, honestly, we'll continue to face this.
You know, when this happened, at the initial stage, lots of people either underestimated it or didn't understand the magnitude of some of these things, so they didn't respond as they ought to. But is it possible to have an estimate of what the gravity of what we're dealing with? Because even if people wanted to help, they might need an idea of the kind of damage that this has caused in terms of quantifying it such that people can then know how to intervene moving forward.
Like I said, we are the second stage, and the third stage will still come. But then, presently, I know that several houses. I told you about 70,000 in 2012. Now you can imagine what the data, the statistics will be now. Well, I can assure you that well over 100 plus thousand houses might be affected. And you have farmlands equally. I was telling you that we have 10 local governments. You can imagine where Ibaji, where we even have the major, producers of rice, is gone. All their farmland gone. And so you can see the level of devastation. We're talking about properties worth of billions of nairas. Honestly, for now, we cannot really ascertain the level. But I think by the time water recedes a little, then we can come out with accurate figure. But for now, we are still battling with how to get people off these flood-prone areas to higher ground.
My colleagues, I've got questions for you. Go ahead, guys.
Chamberlain. Well, Mr. Mafai, again, I share Chamberlain's sentiments in what your state must be dealing with right now, trying to get ahead of this. But then, you said that you're working with the Meteorological Agency and the Hydrological Agency as well. But they have also said, look, the states didn't act quickly enough, that maybe if the states, that were vulnerable to this flooding had acted earlier enough, taking preventive measures, perhaps it wouldn't be as severe as we have it on our hands now. How would you respond?
Oh, my brother, like I told you, this issue has become an annual ritual. And so at every point in time, we are ready. And that was why I told you the activities we had. The first activities is before it happens. And so, like I told you, that the only thing as the state could do is to ensure that we carry out proper sensitization and creating awareness campaign for our people this will come, certainly. And so that is why a lot of, my brother, as we speak, we have only recorded just 4 casualties. Hadn't been, we have not given out this earlier awareness, earlier campaign, it will have been more than that.
But you also said something just now.
In the entire
my apologies. You also said just now that there's been a huge, record of losses already. That it's worst, perhaps the worst ever. So I'm just wondering if not just the information, but some preemptive measures have been taken to ensure that it doesn't get that as bad as it's gotten. Perhaps it wouldn't be as bad as it is now. The roads so bad, traffic can't move, food poverty, creeping in, fuel scarcity getting worse simply because of this flooding. That's the question I'm trying to get ahead of.
Yes, like this is natural. You can't not tell them not to open up the dams. And as those dams were opened, especially the one from Cameroon, it hits Shiroro to Kenji, and you have that of Jeba. So the moment these dams were opened, of course, both river in Niger and Benue will definitely converge, will definitely meet in Lokoja, and that is why we will have ensured that our people are given proper. There's nothing we can do about it. Like I said, there are long times remediation, but the most important thing is to ensure that we have this water dredged. The moment we have it dredged, then it will accommodate, it will give in for room for more water, But the moment these things are not done, like I said, that Lokoja Kutunkarufi axis is because of these factors I've just mentioned. If that place is dredged, honestly, it will accommodate more water, and it will not be splatting all over the places. It will not cover it will not cover the roads.
But just
so
one...
many roads are being cut off now.
Yeah.
Even in all the, not only in Kutun-Karufi, even in all the 10 local governments I've earlier mentioned.
Very sadly so. But, you know, speak to this one very quickly. The governor also said recently calling for a state of national disaster, perhaps another way of saying a state of emergency. What, in your opinion, are the expectations of the federal government on that?
Well, we'll continue to appeal to the federal government, you know, just like my governor has rightly, you know, appealed the other time when his counterpart from Kogi came. Well, we'll continue to appeal, make this appeal, because the level of destruction is so massive that honestly the best thing to do is just to go on for the states to be at least being turned to a state of emergency as this case is now. And like I said, it's not only for the federal government, even the well-spirited persons in the society, and even the international donors. These are people that we're appealing to for them to come to our aid in Kogi State. The budgets that we have, of course, obviously cannot take care of this. And that is why we are making this passionate appeal.
Well, Mr. Mofai, we identify with the people of Kogi State at this very, very difficult time, and thankfully the casualty has not been much. You talk about how the state government has embarked on sensitization, but I wonder if that is enough, considering the sufficient warning provided by NIMET, the hydrological services, and following this disaster, what we have seen is NEMA, you know, taking in 10,000 displaced, the traffic lockjam witnessed in Koton-Karfe, in Lokoja. We've seen FRSC manage traffic. What are the support systems provided, you know, from the structures of the Kogi State government itself to respond to this? Where are your own shelters? Where is the Kogi State Traffic Management Agency, if there's any, to respond to, you know, that emergency in Koton-Karfe, which has had a ricochet effect across states of the Federation?
Yes, if not for the like I told you, if not for the proactiveness of the state government, it will have been even worse than this. Like I told you that already the state is constructing an embankment, which alone has reduced the effect of this flooding in Lokoja metropolis. When you come there, you see it yourself. We are only trying to ensure that this embankment is taken along the coastal that will hit Nataku Junction. That alone is a contract that is ongoing to ensure that we tackle this. And I can assure you that during this period, all hands are on deck. We have NEMA, we have SEMA, and we have even road safety coming into, you know, to rescue this situation. We have NEMA brought some relief materials, and it has equally been distributed. We have non-consumable and consumable items. It has been distributed, you know, together with the support the government is giving to these displaced people. But I think federal government has to quickly see to how this problem could be solved. And one of it is to ensure that this water is being dredged, and by providing more bridges.
Just one more, Mr. Mofai, as we wind down. Do you have any information as to the trucks laden with fuel that were stuck? Are they moving now? What's happening to movement of goods and services?
Yes, the situation is getting better now. Yes, we have at least one road. We have a place that a vehicle can pass, you know, just one vehicle can pass at the moment. It has not given room for two vehicles to move at the same time, but at least the situation is getting improved.
Well,
and I want to believe that before the week runs out, at least we'll get out of it.
Well, we do wish you and the government and the people of Kogi State all the best. And several other states as well are affected by this flood, we might add. So we hope that at least you find strength and deal with this matter. Thank you for talking to us today on the program.
Thank you, Chamberlain. I'm glad to be on here.
All right, so there you go. We've got some messages coming through from you out there about the devastating flood. We've got this, it says, enough has been, he says enough has not been done in practical terms to proactively safeguard lives and properties in flood-prone states in Nigeria. The fact that flood disasters are predictable makes it easier for responsible governments to ensure public safety and standardization because, as the saying goes, water seeks its level.
Well, this one is from Bassi Morgan, who says about the same issue. It is very pathetic to see Nigerians suffering in cases like this. The flood was predicted, and one would expect a proactive approach to it. But since we are used to reactive measures to issues, one would expect the government to get safety jackets for the people using the Kano. The state and federal governments should, as a matter of urgency, mobilize medical staff in case of any water-related diseases outbreak due to the flooding. God bless Kogi State and Nigeria.
And this one is from Kene Kenneth. He says, the impact of the youth in governance has been minimal, to say the least. In terms of participating in elections, the youth have been found wanting. While the number of youths registering to vote has been increasing since 1999, the actual number of youth voting has been reducing at every election. There's need for the youth to build strong political platforms which will serve as a pedestal to mobilize other youths for political engagement. Well, we have more from Henry.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, we have one from Henry. Youth participation in politics and electioneering in Nigeria is hampered by lack of effective leadership and cohesion, unlike the days of struggle for independence and military dictatorship. They sing in staccato tunes and fail to find a common meeting ground.
Well, like Kunju says, the establishments meant to protect our interests only defines youth participation through layers of scripted biases. The youth shouldn't be only defined through their social media participation, but rather by their population and political impact. So there you go. We appreciate all of you for sending in your messages, and we hope to keep finding time to read as many as we can. That is the show today. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you again next time. I am Chamberlain, so have a very good day.
Well, sing not in staccato tunes at the elections in 2023. Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
Whatever you sing, just make it melodious. Amaya Makinde, have a wonderful day.